Also with us, Iraq veteran Army captain and CEO of Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, Allison Jaslow, and staff writer with The Atlantic, Tom Nichols. Allison, I do want to begin with you. In watching the hearing today, we saw the allegations, we saw the controversies, we saw how Democrats pushed him to get answers, how Republicans warmed up to him. I want to know from his testimony specifically how you think the Pentagon would change under Pete Hegseth.
Well, I think it remains to be seen how the Pentagon would be reshaped under his leadership. I hope we actually don't get to that point, even if people are beginning to accept the fact that he might actually be confirmed. And I think as it relates to today's hearing, the most concerning thing for me was that senators didn't dig into the fact that he openly lobbied for war criminals to be convicted war criminals, to be pardoned. These were men who had men that were serving alongside of them speak up because though they experienced the same horrors of war, they thought that they crossed lines that we should not cross. And to me, that is the most concerning thing about Pete Hegseth's background, in addition to his comments saying that he thinks that we should not adhere to the Geneva Conventions anymore. And I think it was a real shame that senators didn't dig into that more, because to me, it's the most disqualifying part of his background. And I hope... Sorry.
And no, I think that's exactly what I wanted to get to, the Geneva Conventions. He was asked whether he'd adhere to them, and he was really squishy on that answer. He's been squishy in other publications about the Geneva Conventions. Donald Trump, I asked him personally about the Geneva Conventions back in 2016, and he wouldn't confirm that he wanted to follow the Geneva Conventions. What would it mean, just put into layman's terms, for the U.S. military to throw away the Geneva Conventions, the rules of war?
I mean, it's basically the compact that we've entered into with other nations, that even if we go to war against each other, that there will be certain basic rules, that we will have rules of engagement, that we won't indiscriminately shoot people on the battlefield, especially on the asymmetrical battlefields that Pete Hegseth did talk about as a part of his hearing and many of the interviews that he's done up until this point. And you're speaking to somebody right now who lost a fellow platoon leader. I wear a bracelet with his name on my wrist every day. We lost him while he was following the rules of engagement. But he couldn't tell the difference between the bad guys and the good guys, like many of us couldn't on the battlefield. But it doesn't mean that we still shouldn't have standards that we hold ourselves to. And it's really hard to suffer loss under those circumstances. But the U.S. military holds ourselves to a higher standard for a reason. And it has everything to do with the implications, not only for our national security, but we don't want our men and women in uniform who are fighting for us to be more vulnerable than they already are on the battlefield. And that's what it comes down to.
Tom, in your career, you focused on national affairs, national security issues. You were